Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Monday, March 28th. So welcome to the last week of March. We talked a little bit about that in the weekend video, or excuse me, this morning's pre-market session, just what the last week of the month kind of means. I will get to that in a second. Let me get to the risk disclaimer first. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. The themes of the day was, definitely crypto kind of crept into the performance there overnight, and as well kind of dictated some things today. And growth performed quite well. There was the one of the stories or main stories today in growth land was, Tesla trying to authorize another stock split. I'll talk briefly about that. I think they just did a really good job covering that. I was watching CNBC talking about whether or not a stock split really matters, and I think that the way that they discussed it was a pretty good one. I'll highlight that really quick, just in case you didn't see that. And then the meme stocks are just going crazy. That's something that I don't understand at all, but why that is taking place, but that doesn't matter. There are so many different stocks, right? When you look at trading and when you look at investing, there are so many different areas of the market that you can be in and that you could be really good at, or that you could be kind of a visitor in some areas and be a day trader in some of the areas that you're not, it's not your bread and butter. And that's the meme stocks. I get it. It's big momentum plays, but I don't really understand why, I get the gamma move that's going on here. Some of the meme stocks are really low float, right? So when you start to buy more and more options, you're kind of, and I'm sorry to use this word, but I think it's the best way to describe it. You're really manipulating what's going on, right? The more that people buy call options, right, and the stock starts to move, right, there is a gamma effect, right, and that is going to make the stock go up further and further because the market makers do need to hedge the gamma move, right? Market makers, by the way, just I don't mean to get off track here. Everybody thinks that the market makers are doing some type of manipulation in the market. For the most part, they're not. They're just executing orders and they're earning a bid-ask spread, right? Sometimes there's a little bit of front-running orders, but that's more the high-frequency shops. What they're doing is they're hedging out their orders, and they need to hedge more and more. If they're sitting, if they've got an option on one side and stock on the other, and the stock begins to really move, they need to compute what the gamma move, what the changes, what the change in the delta is, and that will cause them to go out and buy more stock. So the one thing too I'll add here is that I don't really understand how there's still a decent amount of short interest in these stocks, because the shorts have no excuse to be in these things, right? If I was in that field of being, if that was the majority of my business was to short stocks, right, I would not be in those names to short, because there are investors who are extremely passionate about being long those names. So I think it's more of an excuse to say, oh, it's a short squeeze. Half the time it's not a short squeeze, it's a buy squeeze, right? It's everybody purchasing call options. So you look at these stocks, right, and again, I'm just leading off with this maybe just to get this out of the way, but you have to talk about it. This did get to this VPOC up here, right? So I don't know if this is going to be the one to stop this, but it's 44%. So again, these are odd moves. I don't really get it. If there was Blockbuster Video, if the stock was still around, I guess that would be a target for a squeeze. Even though there's, people don't use VCRs, it doesn't matter, right? AMC, I guess you could argue that they're trying to change their business, but same thing with GameStop, moved up 25%. And I get they're doing things like they're buying gold miners or oil rigs or something. I don't know. I'll move on from this. But it just doesn't make sense. Why buy a decaying company or a decaying business? But people will get mad at me if I say that, because people are so passionate that they can't think about anything else. Same thing with Bed Bath & Beyond. We went over this on Friday too. When I know I have to go get something at Bed Bath & Beyond, I cringe. that if I can't order it online, I've got to go to the physical store. But that's me. Some other people, they may really like going to Bed Bath and Beyond. But any of these places that I've discussed, I like going to see the movies. I'm a big movies fan, but that doesn't mean that I think it's a good business. And half the movies that I've gone to recently, they're half empty or half full, however you want to see it. So anyway, I'll move on. Please don't get mad at me because I don't have a strong opinion. I think there's other places to travel and to be involved in your investments in your trades. But hey, if you're just day trading it and you're playing the momentum, then so be it, right? I mean, that's fine. Put the money in your pocket and go from there. So I wanted to talk about the indices too, but again, that's one of the the meme stocks were some of the biggest things. And not only did we see the call activity in those names and the Bed Bath and Beyond, but we saw them in 5 or 6 other names too. All the names that you're familiar with from 2 years ago, right? All these penny stocks. What was the what's the one that I'm thinking of too? ANY, Clover, just a handful of these things that are all it's the same exact ones. BlackBerry, right? So up and down the list. So again, I don't know that I don't really understand the catalyst why today was the day that let's go out and buy all these things. One by one by one by one. But it is what it is. So again, this is why this market is always very difficult, to try to make predictions. That was not something that I really was looking for today, to see that these stocks would be, have the biggest gains, right? S&P. So this is kind of important, right? We are at the top of value. So 45.62, right, is your resistance for the month. And we have now the 80% rule is complete, right? And this has changed, right? The tweet that I sent out earlier, because we had not made it through value, said the 80% rule is in effect. You can Google what the 80% rule is. Somebody asked me about it on Twitter. And if I don't respond to you, just use Google. So 80% rule for a value area, it means if you start the period, and we're going to be starting, for example, we'll be starting the April period just in a couple days, right? If we start above value and we break inside value and establish ourselves like we did here, pretty firmly, there's an 80% chance that you go all the way through from one side to the other. So that is now complete. It'll be interesting to see what happens here at 45.62. I will give you my quick opinion. I do think, just to be like an objective way to put this is, because I think the last week of the month is a little bit difficult to trade. Now we're just in the beginning of the week, so we really haven't gotten close to the end of the month yet. But we have not only month end, but we have quarter end. So if someone were to say to me, would you rather be doing heavy trading in the beginning of the month or at the end of the month? My answer would always be in the beginning of the month. There's new money that is usually put to work by institutions, right? Pension funds in the beginning of the month. At the end of the month, sometimes there's a little bit of profit taking. There's also a reallocation, that takes, right at month end. Quarter end, same thing, even more extreme, possibly, right? So I heard one of the trades might be a rotation back into bonds. So it's something to be aware of, right? The way that I would look at it too, and again, this is not the case every single time, because if you go back to last month, right, there was actually a reallocation back into equities, right? And that rally, happened for a couple of days. And I think that's somewhere in here, right? 225, here's 228. So we had this nice move at the end of last month, though I don't know if that's going to be the case. So what I tell traders to do is to look at your P&L for the month, right? And it should be something that you kind of think about every month, like what your goal is, to make money for the month. Have you achieved that goal, right? Are you being greedy at this point, right? Or is it your strategy to push here? That's fine too, if that's what your strategy says to do. And then I always come back to, for me, I mean, I've had a pretty good month. I'm happy with my P&L. So I'm not really trying to push here. I don't think for my trading, I want to be kind of fresh for the new month of April, right, which is a seasonally strong month. I don't want to give back any major profits here in the last couple of days of the trading month if they decide to actually do one of those or some type of reallocation, out of equities to take some profits. We've certainly seen that before. Take money out at the end of the month and put it back into place in the beginning of the month, right? Sometimes it's just what these institutions are doing, right? So be mindful of that as we're now at, we're actually just above the resistance for the month, right? And also NASDAQ, right? NASDAQ is also 80% rule complete, right? We traveled all the way through to the top of value. We're going to have to deal with the 200-day moving average here. But there's no sell signal here in the market, other than, hey, we're at the resistance, right? What I specifically talked about in the weekend video was whether or not we're seeing any of these divergencies yet as the market's moving up. Right now, of course, the market could change directions because price and trend to me are most important, right? So we'll be on the look for that, right? Just as we were talking about, back in here when the market was declining, right? I was waiting for price to get back above the 5-period moving average. Right now, we're above the 5-period moving average. So there's no sell signal. There's no major divergences either. We see a lot of things that are confirming. Even today, most of the day was kind of choppy, right? And I kind of just hung it up for the day because I just thought today was a little bit too choppy. But even like from the low point, which was at 11 o'clock this morning, we didn't break inside this week's value area. So it just seemed very orderly that we were, and I say this with the market up today, up 0.75%, S&P, Q's up 1.5%. I was expecting, hey, well, we just probably have a little bit of a chop day. That's quite normal after the move we've had. And we actually rallied pretty hard the last like 3 hours of the day. So, but regardless, I don't see any sell signals in the market, but I still want to be cognizant of some month-end seasonality and I want to really be ready to go for the new month of April. IWM was down most of the day, like around 1%. I even put on a trade for this week thinking that IWM might do something different and lead because IWM was down last week. So it is sitting above 204.82. Which I think it needs to, but it's been doing a lot of digestion here the last week or so. All right. A couple other things that stood out to me. So we went over the index charts. I did not go over the Bitcoin chart, which I do want to do. Right. We actually came all the way up. I mean, this is a big move for Bitcoin. 8% today. So we took out this virgin point of control. I put this chart on Twitter last night. This is usually a place for digestion. We'll see if that takes place. But I would definitely keep an eye on this red line here. That's right around 48,500. It is funny because whenever I tweet about Bitcoin or Ethereum, and I'm just putting a chart and saying what I think technically, I have so many people come on and tell me what is going to happen next with Bitcoin. That happens a lot with stocks too. But when I tweet specifically about crypto, Ethereum or Bitcoin, I have people tell me exactly what they think is going to happen next, which I find that funny. Ethereum, you can now use the 200-day moving average as your stop. Remember, if you're a trader, if you're a disciplined trader, right, which is what I try to practice as much as possible, it's all about a level, right? We know that 80, 90% of our trades, right, or 70% are not going to be right. Right. It just doesn't work like that. The best of the best traders are right about, a little bit over 50% of the time. Right. So it's all about establishing your stop price, having a trade idea, having a level to trade against, and then understanding that if your idea is wrong, right, you get out of it without much of a loss. Right. So here, the 200-day moving average, you could go long versus the 200-day moving average. That's 32.23. And that would be your bail point if we break back below. And let's see where this Ethereum wants to go. All right. So very interesting. All right. So I mentioned a couple other themes of the day. Well, we knew this was going to happen if, and I don't know, we're just kind of, reading the news here about some of what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. It sounds like they're going to meet again. It sounds like they're trying to kind of come to some type of solution. Now, who knows if that ever gets reached, because we haven't really seen anything in terms of progress. But I do know that there will be an effect, and some of which is what we saw today. So a lot of the energy plays, right? A lot of the material plays, the mining plays, the gold plays, all of that trade works together right now. If I didn't say, yeah, I said agriculture, right? So now keep in mind, they had an enormous week last week. So so far just an inside day, but that's down 2.5% for XOP. For XLE, right? That's down 2.5%. Right. So these names went down, the metals and mining, which absolutely, and you have to look at some of these charts and realize how overbought, right? And that they're in need for a pullback. So that was something specifically that we talked about in the weekend video, is that I did not want to include many energy, metals and mining, material, agriculture names. And you could see I didn't include them on the watch list. I think I had a Devon Energy and I had the uranium ETF. But besides that, I did not include any of those names because I think that they've just gone up way too, sorry, not way too far, but they've gone up enough, right? And here's, let's see if I still have this up or not. Yeah, I could certainly go into, yeah, here we go. Last week, this was the performance. Oh, XOP was up 10%. So you're telling me you're looking for another 10%, right? XME, metals and mining, was up 8% last week. Steel names were up 8%. That's huge moves. The agriculture ETF was up 6%, right? So this is begging profit taking, especially if they dial down some of the rhetoric that's happening in Ukraine and Russia. And if they decide that they want to come to some type of solution, I would expect more rotation, out of some of these groups, and then watch where they stabilize. So it's an important, we've talked about this now for like 3 weeks, right? About how all of those trades are going to move together. So, if you're holding some of these things, right, then you probably did not have such a great day. Right. I'm still holding a few of them. Right. We talked about energy names. I'm still holding a portion of VET. I actually got into one trade on Friday and I did take a target in it, which is CTRA. Right. So I'm holding a couple of these things. I'm still holding some Valet as well. All right. So, those names were down today. So that affected my P&L a bit today. And I'm holding the right, share quantity. I want to hold a little bit of these things because we don't know that this situation is going to be, if there is going to be some type of, peaceful treaty or something like that. All right. So, so that was a big theme for the day. Let me get back to my spreadsheet. We talked about the meme rally. Other things that performed well were the software names, right? Again, some of the most beaten up areas of the market. I made this point in the weekend video that the overall tech ETF is above the 200-day moving average. And look at IGV, right, which is the software. Now, I view this as not a good thing, right? When I see something down this much, right, it is showing relative weakness. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't come up from the lows, and we may see that further. We may see a move up in some of the software names, but I like the XLK chart better. Why? Because it's showing more strength. Okay, let me talk a little bit about Tesla. Like I said in the beginning of this video, that I think CNBC, Michael Santoli did a great job. They are announcing that they're going to have another split, and it really doesn't mean anything economically, right? All you're doing is taking the share price, you're reducing it, and you get more shares, right? It's the equivalent, and we've said it before in these videos, of if you've got a $20 bill, right, and you go to a bank and you ask the teller for change, and they give you 20 singles from your $20 bill. That's it. It's the same. It's the same. You still have $20, right? Or you could get really, creative and say, hey, I want 4 5s, right? Now you've got 4 5s that's still equal $20 versus the $20 bill. So it's the same thing. However, it gets people excited, and it gets there. You could get short-term momentum in the name, right? There's another name that nobody's talking about that announced a 4-for-1 stock split last week. Now it's doing okay since it announced that. It announced it on Thursday after the close, I think it was. This is DXEM. But again, nowadays it really shouldn't be that much of a, I understand the fact that younger investors will be able to afford it, but you could afford fractional shares, right? I do business. One of my accounts is at M1 Finance, right? And I run a portfolio type of a trading account, and they purchase fractional shares for me. There's no charge for that or any, so it doesn't matter. So if I only have, if I'm only adding, $1,000 or $5,000 to the portfolio, right? It's going, and if I've got 20 or 30 names, they're going to buy fractional shares for me. I don't need to own one share. So they, or it could be, in any dollar amount, right? So anyway, so let me continue. But regardless, the market likes it, right? So where could we be headed? It looks like there's another VPOC up here at 1098, right? And that might see a little bit of profit taking, right? Again, we're running into some short-term overhead resistance. Remember why, I've had Tesla on the watch list and why I'm a shareholder of Tesla. It's in the TTG trend portfolio. I really like the candle, right? So if you felt that you were late on this week, right, that was at 878. Look at what the stock has done since. So if my philosophy is, right, sometimes a stock will make a big move in a week. But if it's just starting to come out of consolidation and it's not extended, it could actually be the start of the move. And 3 weeks ago, this bullish engulfing candle, which got you back above the value area, was the start of the move. All right, so just a few other stocks to kind of look at. I'll run through about 5 or 6 names with you. Juniper, you got a nice breakout here. I got long Juniper about, a week and a half ago. That one's working quite nicely. ON Semiconductor is another one. I had a lot of semis on the watch list this week. ON Semi made a move 2.3%, right? That triggered on my list, right? As obviously Tesla, I didn't know that there was going to be a stock split announced. 2 of the shipping names. ZIM had a nice day. I was actually waiting for the stock to get down to the 20-day moving average. It didn't get there strong enough. I actually went into this name today, DAC, which is another shipping name. It had a good day today, up 2.9%. So that worked well. Some other names that saw some option activity, call activity. I know people love that stuff. Snow, right? So, how would I trade this? Because I'm not a fan of names in downtrends. Well, I do like the little consolidation here, right? And it did get over the value area for the week, right? Which is 226.63. You can be long versus that level and look for possibly 239, 249 would be an upside place to take some targets. All right, another one that saw some weekly calls today too, big momentum name was Upstart. There's going to be some resistance at 114 on the daily chart. Not such a great looking chart, but I get it. People like the short-term option activity. And then finally, what was the one? Also Zscaler saw some calls. Interesting, Zscaler looks a little bit like that snowflake chart. It is in value, still below the 200-day moving average, but watch to see if this thing can break above value. So this will be a good name to watch for tomorrow. Watch this 236 level, and if it stays above there, then we can aim for a target up at 248. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Again, a lot of things going on today. Most importantly, keep in the back of your mind that this week is month end. So be mindful about whether or not you want to carry the same amount of risk. I was a net seller today. Meme rally, we talked about that. Just a lot of stocks in that genre, just having huge high momentum. The VIX, which I forgot to touch upon, first time since the beginning of February that the VIX is back below 20, right? That is confirming more risk on right now in this market. Right. And then lastly, just continue to trade. We'll be going through our watch list tomorrow morning as well, pre-market for members, and looking for some setups in that space. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.